Okay, back here with Dr. Tim. We can hear Jax.
Jax is eating her dog food, so welcome to my days when Jax eats her dog food in the background.
Dog on the set here at the living room in the studio. I love it. Okay, Dr. Tim, question of the day. Does everything that can be counted count?
No.
Why?
So I'll give you the business analogy. So this is what I teach entrepreneurs all the time. Just because you can measure it doesn't mean you should. Right?
Yes.
Yeah. Because so business owners hear this idea of, hey, KPIs are really important, and so I got to get a key performance indicator, and so I got to start measuring KPIs. And so they start measuring, sales and door-to-door times and customer service levels and production and productivity and how many widgets do we make an hour or whatever it is in their business. And then they have another thing and another thing and another thing. And by the time they call me and I'm helping them, they're measuring, 200 things a day or 200 things a week. And the whole idea is, okay, of those, which half a dozen tell you everything you need to know? And narrowing that down and bringing that in to say what are the things that really are important really helps a business owner to say. So I always ask them this question. If you're in Hawaii on the beach and you can only check your phone or your email for 10 minutes a day, which things would you need to know that would tell you exactly how your business is doing? And every business has them. They're different for every business. But you have to narrow it down like that so you can literally pull it up and go, yep, we're good. Let's go play.
So hypothetically speaking, could a business, an entire business, be run on one KPI if it was the one root cause indicator that determined whether or not you were going to be able to predict success?
Probably. I think one would be difficult because there is certainly no more than 6. Could you get it to 1? Probably. You could say, if I could only measure one, ask the question. If I could only measure one thing, what would be the one thing? So I'll give you an example. In our biggest business, which is a healthcare business, we own medical clinics. If I had to pick one thing, I'd say, how many patients did we see yesterday? I know based on how many patients we saw, how well we're doing. Now I'd also like to know, what was the door-to-door time and how's our AR doing and those kind of things. But if I could only pick one thing, and it wasn't going to be an extended, I wouldn't want to only know that for a year, but for a week maybe, I should just look at that one thing and see and tell you more or less how the business is doing just on that one thing. So, but let's take that to life, right? Because you didn't ask necessarily about business. So what things could you measure in your life, or should you measure in your life, and how often? And I love to use the example of weight loss, right? So somebody wants to lose weight. And they say, I need to lose 30 pounds, and I'm going to do this certain thing. I'm going to form these new habits like we talked about. But then you say, all right, well, what should I measure and how often should I measure it? Well, if you're going to lose weight, you probably shouldn't weigh every hour. That's probably not a good idea. But you also probably shouldn't wait a year, right? So somewhere in between 1 hour and 1 year, you should weigh yourself. And we can argue, should you weigh every day, should you weigh once a week, whatever that number is going to look like. But we know it's not every hour and it's not once a month, right? It's somewhere in between those things. And everything in our life is like that.
Yeah.
And there are certain things that are really important to measure that we don't. I think in relationships, you can measure things and most people don't. So Pam and I came up with this idea, and we teach this in our relationship class. How could you measure whether or not you're being a good husband in your wife's eyes? And so this is what we came up with. So once a week, she gets a text message. On a scale of 1 to 10, how have I done as a husband this week? And she sends me back 8. And the next question is, what could I have done to make it a 10? And then she'll tell me the thing I screwed up on, right? Well, you didn't compliment me on my dress on Wednesday, or whatever stupid thing it is. No, I'm kidding. It's never stupid. And I'm sure she says the same. And then I get a text on a scale of 1 to 10. How good of a wife I've been this week? What would have made it a 10? Well, people think, there's no way to measure that. Of course there is. Just ask. How would you ask a customer in your business, how are we doing as your vendor? Ask her. On a scale of 1 to 10, how good of a vendor are we being? What could we do to make it a 10?
It sounds so simple. Do you think that people don't think of that or don't ask the question because they don't want to know the answer?
Maybe both. Maybe because we're a little lazy. You know, we get a little lazy in our relationships, we get a little lazy in our health, maybe get a little lazy in our business sometimes. We're too busy doing other things, we're too busy doing things that are not as important, and or we think it won't be spontaneous. Or I've had couples tell me, well, that's not very spontaneous. Would you rather have spontaneous or spectacular? You know, that's the thing.
Spectacular.
Of course, I'd rather have spectacular. And so it's hard for me to know what my customer wants if my number one customer is my wife. It's hard for me to know what my customer wants if I don't ask the customer.
Oh man. I've been guilty of going the opposite route and having too many KPIs. Well, shoot, you've seen some of my reports in the past.
And what have
right?
I said?
You said we got to weed this down.
Narrow it down.
We got to narrow it down.
Narrow it
right?
down.
I think that sometimes, you know, you want to count all of the things because the things that you really want to make progress in, the most important things, 9 times out of 10, provide you the most resistance.
Yeah.
They're the hardest things to do. The things that are biggest priorities are usually the hardest things to do. So you want to create this illusion of progress, right, where there is none, by counting the stuff that's just not important.
Or just answer your email one more time, which is what people do, right? Man, I got this big project, I got this thing I should work on, so I'll answer my email. I got to answer the email. It's got to be done.
Right.
So they answer email 35 times a day. It's always amazing to me when people email me, and an hour later they're like, "Did you check your email?" I'm like, "No, I don't check my email every hour. I don't check my email once a day. I check my email every couple of days because it's email. Email is for information, not for us having a conversation. If you want to have a conversation, call me."
Right.
Right? And so separating those things out, and I think the more successful you become, or maybe the more busy you become, or the more responsibilities you have, the more you have to figure that out because everybody needs your time. And so if everybody needs your time, you have to develop systems. Can you imagine if I was checking my email once an hour? I wouldn't get anything done.
Oh, there's no way.
Yeah, and I know people like that if I email them, they answer me within 30 seconds. And I'm like, that's not the purpose. You're probably missing something bigger. You're probably not measuring. Even in our life in general, we talk about the 6 pillars. That's because we narrowed life down to 6 KPIs. There's 6 things that you have to be an expert at. Isn't it interesting? We didn't say 600 or 6,000. We narrowed it down to 6. And if you're an expert at these 6 things, you'll have a spectacular life.
Super interesting. So for you people who are using the planner and clicked a QR code to get to this video, and if you're not, it's time to go and subscribe to the planner, livingeveryminute.com. But if you're one of those people that clicked on a QR code and got to this video, one of the things that you should think about in your planner today is how many of the things that you're putting in your planner that are goals or that are things that you're bean counting, how many of them are really serving you, and what is the really purpose and intent of that? Make sure that those things are lining up with the things that you really want out of life.
Yep.
Thanks, Dr. Tim.
Thank you.